Hi, everybody. I'm going to call the February 6th Inland Wetland Agency meeting to order. It's 7:02, and we're going to start with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so to start, I'm going to hand the meeting over to Anne.
Okay, so is Phyllis coming tonight?
No, I did speak with her about a position that she's interested in, and she is interested, but she's not able to attend tonight.
Okay, so do we need to call up somebody then?
I was going to have Diane come be seated tonight. Yeah.
Who else would use it? Oh, that's Leonard. Yeah.
You can see Tom.
I haven't met Tom.
There. Tom Kalau. Nancy.
Tom Kalau.
You want to be
You
seated?
could come be seated as well.
Well, we have a quorum. Do we really need to?
You don't have to, but he's an alternate here.
Yeah, might as well.
It's up to you, the commission.
Who are you going to vote for? I'm totally joking.
I'm not voting for anyone.
So how many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So we need 4 for a quorum then, correct?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So I guess you already called the Inland Wetlands February 6th meeting to order, and this is to nominate the position for chairman. So do I hear any nominations?
To nominate Christian Chantrell as chair for the 2024 year.
I'll second that.
Okay. And do I hear any other nominations? Do I hear any other nominations? Okay. I guess we'll take a vote. All those in favor of Christian Chantrell as chairman for year 24, say aye.
Aye.
Any against? Abstaining? That's all in favor? Okay, Kristen. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're the chairman for the Inland Wetlands. Then did she take over at this point, or did she, okay. So then you have to do the secretary, correct?
And vice chair.
And vice
yes.
chair.
All right. So I'll start for vice chair. I'd like to nominate Don Finster as vice chair.
I'll second that.
Do I hear any other nominations for anybody? And I ask twice. Do I hear any other nominations for vice chair? No? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? Abstain?
One
Right.
abstention.
Okay. Congratulations, Don.
Thank you.
Next we have secretary. So I did talk with Phyllis. She's been our secretary for countless years. She is still interested. So I would like to nominate Phyllis as our secretary. Berger.
I will second that.
Do I hear any other nominations for secretary? Do I hear any other nominations for secretary? All right, all those in favor for Phyllis?
Yeah.
Aye. Looks like everybody? Okay, so we're all set with that. Moving on to public delegations. Public delegations is the time when members of the public are invited to speak to the commission about certain matters. Issues or concerns related to approved wetland permits and in-house proposals or general topics of discussion are open to comment. Agenda items, referrals, applications subject to a decision by the commission, a public hearing, or litigation may not be discussed. The members of the commission will not directly answer questions or make comments during delegations. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak during this time?
So can I ask for a point of clarification? Because the other night at the zoning commission meeting, I think Lawyer Zamarka, you said that public delegation is restricted to items that are on the agenda. That was based on the zoning commission's bylaws.
Okay, ours are different.
I am not aware of how your bylaws treat applications. There's no set way that they have to be done.
Interesting.
As a matter of practice, for years, the zoning commission had done it for matters not on the agenda, while the Board of Selectmen had done it for matters that were or were not on the agenda. The change was made for zoning to be consistent with the bylaws,
With their bylaws.
with their bylaws, correct.
It just strikes me as bizarre that every commission has their own bylaws.
Every commission can run has discretion as to how they run their meetings.
In regards to our bylaws, the Article 3, General Agenda Format Guidelines for Meetings, it's as follows: opening meeting call to order, the pledge, additional agenda items, public delegations, accepted as minutes, ex officio report, pending matters, applications, old business, new business, chairman's report, wetland officer report, adjournment. And that's all we talk about.
So we don't say either way.
No.
Because we can talk about anything then.
Pretty much.
Well, that's kind of interesting because if there's no public hearing and there's an application, then we can't actually hear from the public, right, regarding that application if it's...
The reason we say what's not on the agenda, because if it's just an application not under a public hearing, the public can't weigh in. So you don't want to have someone up here giving testimony.
Right.
And then if you have a public hearing, well, then there's an opportunity and a place on the agenda for that public testimony. So
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, typically when there is an item that's on the agenda, and then if the public shows up, we usually request a public hearing anyway.
Yeah.
So they just have to come out.
well, I would
Okay.
qualify that with not just one person. I mean, you'd have to have a public interest
Usually,
pretty
yeah,
much. Yeah.
there's several people that show up.
Well, I guess that's something as we're revising our regulations we'll have to discuss. Greg, we'll have to mention that
Okay.
when we get to that point.
We can add it as an agenda item, add bylaws and review them. You could create a subcommittee if you wanted, or
I was just curious to
general
have a little bit further discussion about that, that's all.
okay. Maybe put that on the next agenda.
Sure, yeah, thank you. All right, so next we have no public hearings tonight. The acceptance of minutes is next. These are from the December 5th, 2023 regular meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes from December 5th, 2023?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of December 5th, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Great. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. That's fine. Okay. Let's see, next, we have the ex officio report. Ann?
Hi, good evening again. Ann Chicello, ex officio from the Board of Selectmen. I'm also ex officio on the library board, so I did attend their meeting, and they are working on the renovation of the community center, so they're waiting for the final report to figure out how they're going to renovate the library and the community center. The seawall at McCook's, that's been, as you know, there was a storm and the wall came down. Since then, there was an emergency appropriation of $25,000 for the emergency repairs to the seawall, temporary repairs. There have been storms since then that the storm wall has held, so you're protecting the beach and the parking lot at this point, so that's a good thing. We also had the Park and Rec come and present to us on the master plan at Darrow Pond, and they have 100 acres, and what they want to do is have it for passive recreation, education, and conservation. So there would be like some cycling, hiking, disc golf, and the trails, I guess, would connect to the Goodwin Trail. They would also have for students like an outdoor classroom, and a dock where the children could go out from the dock, but with no boating or anything like that. That's what I have. Does anybody have any questions for me at this point?
Darrow Pond is up off Chesterfield Road up on
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
So there's 200 acres
Right.
that they can't touch. It's just this 100 acres that the Park and Rec now has, and they're trying to kind of set it up for people so they can go out and just enjoy nature, you know. And I think especially after the pandemic, it's something that, you know, people need, you know. So I think it's going to be really great for the town.
And the other 200 is just going to be natural.
There's a conservation easement on it, yeah. Anything else? No? Okay. If there's anything through the month, just feel free to reach out to me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to new business. We have the roles and responsibilities of local land use officials, Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Agency powers, duties, and procedures. Mark Samarka, Esquire of Waller, Smith, and Palmer, PC.
Good evening, folks. My name is Mark Zamarka. I'm an attorney with Waller, Smith & Palmer. We are the town attorneys, been so for probably about the last 50 years. Every couple of years, especially when we have some new members, we meet with all of the land use commissions. Thank you. Just to give everybody kind of an overview of what your duties and responsibilities are as a member of the Inland Wetlands Agency. Now, the Inland Wetlands Agency is a statutory creation by the Connecticut legislature, which means you have only those powers that are contained in the statutes and in your regulations. The purpose of an inland wetlands agency is, unsurprisingly, to supervise regulated activities taking place in or near wetlands and watercourses. A regulated activity is defined both by statute and your regulations as any operation within or use of a wetland or watercourse that involves removing or depositing materials or any obstruction, construction, alteration, pollution of a wetland or watercourse. There are some activities that are excluded. For our purposes around here, that usually revolves around agricultural uses. There are others, but those generally do not come up very often.
Occasionally we'll have water sewer.
Okay, okay, fair enough, fair enough. I've got those listed. I was just going to, you know, for the majority of what comes up for exemptions, especially in this town, where you get into the north end, are agricultural type uses. A wetlands agency performs 5 functions. It passes and amends wetlands regulations, which I know the chair had mentioned recently. It determines the boundaries of inland wetlands and watercourses. It rules on permits to conduct regulated activities, enforces the wetlands regulations, and sometimes makes advisory opinions when considering special permits, site plans, or subdivision applications. Now, as we mentioned, there are 6 types of activities that are exempt from inland wetlands review. Agricultural uses, a residential home on a subdivision lot that was approved prior to the wetlands regulations, boat anchorages and moorings, some uses that are incidental to the enjoyment and maintenance of residential property, construction or operation by water companies or municipal water supply systems, which is what Gary mentioned, maintenance of drainage pipes on residentially zoned lands, which became effective before municipal wetlands regulations or July 1 of 1974, which I believe is what our operative date would be. Now, your jurisdiction as an inland wetlands agency is limited to regulated activities in wetlands or watercourses or operations which affect them as defined by the statute, such as alteration or pollution of wetlands or watercourses. Now, your jurisdiction does extend nominally outside of wetlands and watercourses to the area that you probably know is called the Upland Review Area, or the URA. In East Lyme, that was recently amended a few years ago from 100 feet to 300 feet. And what the statute allows is the wetlands agency can regulate activities in the upland review, sometimes known as also as the buffer area, when the activities there are likely to impact or affect the wetlands or watercourses. Now, according to the Connecticut Supreme Court, you can regulate outside of the wetland or watercourse or in the upland review area only those activities that are likely to adversely affect the physical characteristics of the wetlands or watercourses. That jurisdiction does not extend to any wildlife that may use or be supported by those wetlands. The mere possibility or speculation of any effect on the wetlands is not enough. There has to be a reasonable likelihood that the activity in the upland review area will affect the wetland in order for you to assert jurisdiction over it. Now, most of your time, as you probably know by now, will be spent reviewing applications for regulated activities. We've already talked about what a regulated activity is: moving, depositing materials within the wetlands, any type of construction that would obstruct or affect the watercourse in some way. As with all land use agencies, when an application is filed, a statutory time clock starts. This is pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 8-7D. The way a wetlands agency deals with applications in terms of time frame is a little different from other land use agencies such as planning or zoning. You're all subject to the same time constraints, but there are certain penalties that attach to planning and zoning that do not to a wetlands agency. Once an application is filed, you have within 65 days of receipt, you have to schedule a public hearing if a public hearing is going to be set.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt?
Sure.
Filing as far as the day of our meeting, because we've talked about this.
It's a good question. The date of receipt is considered either the date it was received by the land use office or the next schedule, or it's the date of the next scheduled, the date of receipt by the land use office or the next scheduled meeting, whichever comes first.
Whichever comes first.
Correct.
So if someone applied tomorrow, then that would be the receipt date, not our next month meeting.
No, it would be your next scheduled meeting.
It would be.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I misspoke. Gary
Sorry,
corrected me.
yeah,
Yes, no,
totally
he's,
clear.
that's absolutely right.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
could you restate it again, please?
Sure. The date of receipt is either the next scheduled meeting or 35 days from the date of receipt, whichever comes first. Okay. Most times that takes into account the next scheduled meeting because you have meetings less than every 35 days. From the date of receipt, you have 65 days within which to schedule a public hearing if a public hearing is going to be scheduled. Now, there are 3 ways under your regulations that a public hearing can be scheduled. First, and probably most importantly, is if the agency finds that the proposed activity may have a significant impact. I'm sure you've probably heard Gary use the acronym FONSI before, finding of significant impact. You haven't? Okay, fair enough. That's a preliminary determination, and if the agency decides that there is a significant impact, then you set a public hearing. Another way is if there is a petition signed by at least 25 people. We have had that happen before. The third is if the agency decides that a public hearing is within the public interest.
Sorry to interrupt again. The petition, that has to be received within 12 days, 14 days,
14 days.
of receipt of the application, which would then be the...
So the public would know about it by it showing up on the agenda, and then 14 days from the date of the meeting. So
Correct.
Got it,
say
okay.
tonight, so
Correct.
the
Yep.
that we received today, I'll have 14 days to file a petition.
Okay,
Correct.
okay, got it.
Correct. Once the public hearing is opened, it has to be completed within 35 days. Once the public hearing is closed, you have 35 days. Sorry. It's a little different. My apologies. If there is no public hearing, then you have 35 days to decide on the application from the date of the hearing. If a public hearing is scheduled, once the public hearing is closed, you have 65 days after the date of the public hearing to render your decision. Now, the difference with a wetlands agency as opposed to planning or zoning is if a planning or zoning commission fails to act and render their decision within that time frame, something called inferred approval takes effect. It means their failure to act means that the application is approved. That does not apply to an inland wetlands agency. Effectively speaking, you can not make a decision within the 65 days, and it does not mean that the application is granted. In that case, the applicant's avenue of appeal, as it were, is to go directly to the DEEP and to file a complaint with the DEEP. But functionally speaking, that doesn't really happen because there's over a year wait list, and it's probably even far more now after COVID. Any questions so far?
I'm sorry, just want to make sure, once the public hearing is open, that public hearing needs to be completed within 35 days?
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, is there, I'm just trying to remember when I was on it, can they also get extensions?
There can be, yes, there can be extensions. Only the applicant under Connecticut statutes can grant extensions. They can grant extensions of up to a total of 65 days. But again, the commission, if there's a reason that the agency feels that there's a need for an extension, most times applicants are very cooperative with that in granting extensions. Now, the purpose of a public hearing is obviously to allow the applicant to present their application to you and for you to gather facts. A lot of times this is done through documentation as well as testimony. I see Mr. Wren in the audience tonight. A lot of what you will hear in an inland wetlands application is very technical, very scientific, so it's very important that all that information be presented at a public hearing. The members of the commission are allowed to ask questions of the applicant's expert during the public hearing, and also obviously members of the public are allowed to speak either for, against, or neutral to any application. Your secretary, Ms. Spang, is very well versed in how to handle public hearings, and she will keep track of the exhibits, but it is important to make a record of the proceedings, because if something happens and the matter is appealed to the Superior Court, then that record is what is transmitted to the Superior Court, and that's what the court ends up deciding the appeal based on. Now, there are a couple of instances where members of not just this commission, but any land use agency or local commission or agency can potentially be disqualified. One is predetermination or bias. That's obviously a little more nebulous. That's when, for whatever reason, possibly a personal connection, possibly personal belief towards something in an application before you, makes it such that the commissioner cannot rule or judge on the application without on an impartial basis. That's obviously a more personal thing. There's really no way to monitor that, but clearly if sitting as a member of this agency, a matter comes before you that you potentially have some connection with or some strong personal feelings either for or against, our advice is always it's best to err on the side of caution, and if you feel there's a reason that you can't, for some reason, judge the matter before you fairly and impartially, there is nothing wrong with recusing yourself. The other matter that comes up probably more often is a conflict of interest. That's when a commissioner, pardon me, has either a personal or financial interest or relationship with the applicant that could in some way potentially affect how they rule on the application. Again, we always look to err on the side of caution and try to avoid the appearance of impropriety. It's far better to recuse yourself than not and have that potentially taint whatever action the commission might take. Another matter that has come up fairly recently, and it was with this commission a few years ago, is if sitting as a member of any board or commission, it doesn't apply just to the Wetlands Agency, but if a commissioner has any type of specialized knowledge or experience that would apply to the application before you. For example, I believe with the Wetlands Agency a few years ago, we had one or two people who were environmental scientists, if I recall.
I think we do have some members here who have some qualifications.
Okay, okay. And that did come up after the fact, after a public hearing had been closed. Connecticut law does require you to disclose any specialized knowledge or experience you may have during the public hearing, so that the applicant or anyone else can, if they feel it's necessary, question you or look into any bases you may have from that experience, and how that may apply to how you would be looking at the application. Now, when you make your decisions, any decision you make must be based on substantial evidence. And again, you're only dealing with evidence in the record. Once the public hearing is closed, you cannot take in any more new evidence. The only caveat to that is you can receive reports from staff, meaning Mr. Gaishel, meaning our office, if there are further questions that you feel need to be answered. Now, your decision has to be based on substantial evidence. Substantial evidence is defined as evidence that affords a substantial basis of fact from which the fact in issue can be reasonably inferred. Good luck, the courts deal with that all the time. It is a deferential standard to the individual agency or commission, so you sit as the fact finders, and if it is reviewed by a court on appeal afterwards, the findings of fact that you make are given deference by the court, but those findings you make still have to be supported by evidence in the record. Now, in general, nonspecific concerns or speculative claims about possible or potential impacts on the wetlands are not considered substantial evidence. A significant potential for impact to wetlands is insufficient. The impact must be likely and it must be averse. And again, an impact on the upland review area only is not a sufficient basis to rule against an application. If an activity is taking place in the upland review area, it has to have some substantial an adverse impact on the wetland itself. The impact cannot be just in the upland review area. Now, Connecticut statutes and your regulations also require you to state the reasons for your decision on the record. Mr. Gaishel is very good at drafting resolutions, either approving or denying applications that set forth in very great detail the bases for whatever decision the commission decides to make. Again, the reviewing, if you do that and someone appeals the decision that you make on review, the court will look at the reasons you state in your resolution, and if any one of those reasons is supported by evidence in the record, your decision will be upheld. We can talk a little bit about expert testimony. Essentially what it means is you don't necessarily have to believe anyone who comes in front of you, whether it be an expert, whether it be a lay person. But if you have expert testimony and you're not going to credit that expert testimony, you can't do that if that expert testimony is uncontradicted by another expert. Essentially, civil engineers, things like that, they are accorded they are accorded some discretion in the testimony that they make, and you can't simply disregard their testimony without some factual basis in the record. Now, your regulations also set out the evidence that you may consider in making your findings and the factors that you must consider. This is in 10.2 of your regulations, and this is one thing that you will need to become familiar with. The factors you must consider are the environmental impact of the proposed activity on the wetland or watercourse, the applicant's purpose for the proposed activity, and any feasible and prudent alternatives which would cause less or no impact. 3, the relationship between the short-term and long-term impacts of the proposed activity. 4, any irreversible or irretrievable loss of wetlands or watercourses caused by the activity, and any mitigation that may be considered as a condition of issuing the permit. 5, the character and degree of injury to or interference with the health, safety, or reasonable use of the property. And finally, the impacts of the proposed activity on areas outside of, or pardon me, the impacts of the proposed activity on the wetlands or watercourse outside of the area of the proposed activity, but still within the wetland or watercourse, and any future activities that are reasonably associated with the application. Now, your regulations also require you to consider not only the proposed activity, but any activities which are made inevitable by the proposed activity, i.e. the next step down the road, or that may have an impact on the wetland or watercourse. If you decide that an application is to be denied because there are feasible and prudent alternatives that exist, you have to state on the record the types of alternatives that you are claiming must be investigated. It is the applicant's burden to show that the proposal they are putting forth is the only feasible and prudent alternative. If you find that alternatives exist, you must state that on the record and what those alternatives are. One thing that often happens in a wetlands application is members of the public can do what is called intervening. The Connecticut Environmental Protection Statute allows anyone to intervene in a wetlands application process. They have to do so by filing a verified petition, which our office reviews, and it also requires you to make additional findings regarding the application. That's getting a little bit into the weeds right now. I know there's kind of a lot being thrown at you right now, so if and when that happens, we will be glad to let you know how to deal with an intervener. The last thing to remember as a member of a wetlands agency or a member of any municipal board or commission is that you are subject to the Freedom of Information Act. Any member of a board or commission, any member of the Board of Selectmen, Planning, Zoning, Historical Properties Commission across the way are subject to FOI. That means a request can be made of any or all of you for Freedom of Information. Now, there are two basic purposes of the Freedom of Information Act. One is to allow public access to records, and two is what's known as the open meetings portion. The Freedom of Information Act defines a public record as any information relating to the conduct of the public's business that is prepared, owned, used, received, or retained by a public agency. The basic premise is that anything within town hall is a public record and subject to disclosure, except for any applicable exemptions or exclusions that may be had. Now, because we live in the electronic age, a document is not limited to this. A document also entails emails, texts, any type, essentially, of written communication. For that reason, and I believe everyone now has official East Lyme Town Hall emails. Is that correct? No.
They have the option to purchase.
They have the option to purchase. Okay, that's fine. What we highly suggest is that there are no group texts, no group emails regarding anything that is the substantive business of this agency. What you're concerned about here is a quorum meeting outside of the bounds of a properly noticed public meeting. If that happens, even via a group text, a group email, that can be considered an illegal meeting. Obviously, there are some things that need to be communicated by email or by text. We highly recommend, and the land use office is very good about that it only be limited to administrative matters. You know, for example, we're canceling the January meeting. We're moving the meeting from 7 to 7:30, something like that. Okay.
Can I just ask for you to clarify? So when we're on a public site walk, let's say not public, if we're on a site walk, we're technically not allowed to have discussion of the site while we're there if no one's recording what we're discussing.
That's correct.
So when we're on site walks, we just have to make sure that we're not discussing what we're seeing until we come here.
That's correct.
Just wanted to clarify.
That's correct.
Can we record what we're seeing? at the sidewalk? Like take a picture ourselves, that kind of stuff.
That's a good question.
I also
I
thought
would,
of
I would,
drone.
I would have to let you know on that, Mr.
thought of
Mister. I'm
drone.
not positive. I wouldn't think there's a prohibition against it, but I would not want to give you an answer until I actually take a look.
Okay.
Just know whatever you take a picture with is subject to FOI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you acquire it.
And if anything like that is done, in order to be, completely transparent about it, I
course.
imagine the first thing to do would be to have it entered in the record once the agency meets afterwards.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know that there's any specific prohibition against it, but I can certainly check for you.
That'd be great.
Sure.
And on the sidewalks, my understanding is the only discussion typically is from the applicant's engineer or whoever the representative, merely orientating you with the site.
That's correct.
Oh, sorry.
That's correct, yeah.
Really orientation.
There should be no other real substantive discussion.
Like the plants are going over here, the trees are going to.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah. And as Gary said, the purpose is to orient you and, depending on where things will go, things like that, to give the agency a better idea of what it's going to look
The
like.
applicant shouldn't get into the substantive stuff either, so we can remind them, hey, that's more information that we need.
Correct. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank
Can I
you.
ask one quick question?
Sure.
When someone confuses themselves, are they, because I ran into this before, do they have to leave the room if they, or do they, can they sit
No,
in
not
the
necessarily, no, but they don't take part in that
audience? Okay,
application.
So they can stay in the
Yeah.
audience? They can-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In my practice, I've just been told it's highly recommended they leave the room, only because facial expressions.
Well, that's what I was,
And
yeah, exactly. That's what I
so,
was thinking.
depending on what
No.
zoning circle you're in, you may or may not see commissioners leave the room.
Fair enough. I don't know of anything that
That's a
requires
challenge,
it, but again, the whole purpose of
Very
recusing
challenging.
yourself is to avoid the appearance of impropriety, so if that's a concern, certainly that's the better tack to take.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I wouldn't put it past a developer who's challenging their application that may have been denied that, hey, the guy who recused himself was sitting back here and he was shaking his head all night long. So, yeah,
You would hope that wouldn't be an issue, but certainly, if it's a concern,
I guess it's happened in other municipalities, so it's.
okay. All right. Thank you, folks.
Thanks. I don't have a motion here, correct?
No.
Okay. All right, so next is the Chapman Woods Association, applicant Chapman Woods Road, application to repair hazardous drainage conditions and restore interrupted drainage flow from the roadway stormwater system to a functional, safe condition. Date of receipt is today.
Good evening, everyone. My name's, I feel like I'm on Shark Tank. My name is Joe Brennan, professional engineer with Indigo in Old Saybrook. Live in town as well. I know tonight is just for receipt, so I won't get into every single little detail because we just have to kind of do it again at your next meeting. So I'll just orient you to the site, make sure you understand the location, make sure you understand everything that we're, is that picking me up okay? Okay. Make sure everything that we're proposing, you understand. If you have any questions, you can answer them. And then if there's any additional information you would like prior to the next meeting, we can certainly get you that too. We like to make our applications very, very complete. If you look on the plan, all the information provided, and then I also have some photos of the existing conditions that I'll hand out very shortly as well, so that you can really get a good feel for what's being proposed, so you can evaluate it accordingly. So before I hand out the photos, just quickly, the site location. You're all familiar with Stop Shop right across the road. This is Flanders Road, Route 161. Right through that intersection is Chapman Woods Road. Some of you may have been up there for different business. Many of you may not have, because at the end there's just there's a daycare, there's a hotel, and then there's Chapman Woods Association, which is a 94-unit, 55-plus community up there. We had another drainage situation up the road, which we repaired recently, and that one is working well through this little bit of a winter that we've been having. they had a situation where groundwater was pushing up onto the surface of the road, and then of course you get sub-freezing temperatures that causes icing over the road, and it's just a constant problem. That one up the road we fixed, and it's been working really well through this winter. So they're very happy with that. The second focus for drainage within their roadway is the subject of this application. So as you come into the road, I'll pass these, I have one set of photographs and then I have one that I can reference as well. There are two photos looking downstream. Downstream is right to left on this plane going down toward Route 161. And then two photos looking upstream. Upstream is obviously the opposite direction, going from west to east. So when this was originally built, they had the road. They have a 2x4 concrete box culvert coming across the road here. That discharges at the head of this stream. The stream is lined with bedrock and riprap, as you'll see in those pictures. There's really no vegetation. There's really no wetland soil there, all along the edges. So the wetland that's delineated here is really for a watercourse delineation versus a wetland soil delineation, as you'll see. What has happened over time is there's a series of catch basins that you'll see on the plan that discharge. There's a pipe that discharges to the stream. And over time, with some scouring from this box culvert that you'll see in the photos, it's up a couple of feet off of the water level. It just comes out of here, spills into that, scours the hole out. They probably put riprap in there initially, riprap over ledge, more or less. The north side is all bedrock. You can see it if you go out there. And that riprap has, over the years, has piled up in this area that's shaded in blue on this plan, and is now about 2 feet higher than the outlet pipe from that drainage basin. That pipe is a 15-inch pipe across the road, and then it is either a 15 or 18-inch from the catch basin into the stream. And as you can see on this profile, the entire pipe is completely buried with the sediment. So the water in a storm cannot get out there, and it backs up through the system, floods the pipe, and then floods the catch basins, and then the water runs down the road. And if it's a sub-freezing condition, there's all icing on this curve of the road. Some of you may have seen or experienced that in the past. In the photos that are going around now that they're making it almost all the way through, you can clearly see that pile of sediment and riprap that's in there, that's in that stream. The first two are looking downstream. The second picture includes that box culvert, and you could see it spilling into that scoured hole. And then you could really see the area in blue on our plan where all the sediment has accumulated. That pipe outlet is just to the left of that box culvert outlet, and obviously you can't see it because it's under the sediment and the riprap on that side. The other two photos are looking from downstream to upstream. In these photos, again, the pipe is on the side over here, but you just can't see it. You have to dig through the stones and the sediment in order to find it. And the last picture is a good photo. You can really see the rocks and the debris and the sediment, probably road sand, and just a combination of things that have accumulated there over time. So the purpose of this project is just to restore what was once original condition. Obviously, water flows downhill. If you look at this profile, you can see we have the scour hole here, and then we have this big mound of extra sediment. And in order to restore a free-flowing sloped channel, we have to remove that material. In the application and on the plan, we estimated that material between 30 and 40 cubic yards, which is about 2 triaxles of material. We think it might be maybe even a little less than 30, but we wanted to be conservative. 2 full triaxles is about 36 to 40 yards, depending on how much they could get in the dump truck. So we just wanted to be conservative there. We didn't want to tell you or apply in the application for less than what was actually going to be removed. We'd rather ask for more. So the material, the equipment would set up here in this yellow area. That's your upland area, basically just grass. There are planted trees, 6 of them, that end right at the beginning of that yellow area. And then there's some guardrail that starts up to this culvert. and the yellow area ends there. The yellow area represents the area that will be disturbed by the small excavator that's going to have to sit either partially in the road or on that bank. It's just a grass bank right now. There's really no shrubs or any important vegetation. Just to sit, excavate the material out of there, load it immediately onto a triaxle that's sitting in the road, and then just remove. We don't anticipate that the project will take more than a day or two. There are notes on the plan too. Those pictures, these pictures you could see, obviously all the water we've had since September. All the cloudy, rainy days and snowy days and the snow melt and so forth. There is water in the stream now, but there's a note on the plan that the work has to be done completely in the dry. The stream does dry up. There might be a little water sitting in the scour hole, even if the stream's not flowing, because it's lined with bedrock. And this area is lower than where the sediment is, so there could be a little pool of water there. But we really want little to no flow, active flow coming out through the stream, so there's no chance of any sediment migrating downstream. And we also even went over and above that it has to be done during a dry period, but during that period there can't be any forecasted, predicted storms of any significant amount that would cause live flow to start through the stream and then migrate through the construction. So we'd like to move that material, restore this grass area afterward. Prior to the construction, as you follow on through the plan, we added a crushed stone check dam across the dry channel at this location. Now the reason for that, I don't think we really for sure are required to have that or need it. We added it just in case if there is some water here, no active flow in the stream, some water here, and as we create the slope or restore that slope that was normally there, originally there, that any water that does make it through kind of stops at the crushed stone berm and can filter through that to stop any sediment from migrating downstream. So our hope and the purpose of all this is that no sediment gets through this work area and gets downstream of the site. Nothing measurable or significant anyway. Once the work is done, the two triaxles are gone, the stream is restored to that original slope. This pipe is now flowing free, so as it catches water that can free flow, as we all know, water still flows downhill and it can't flow through the sediment. So that will improve not only the surface water condition here, but what we're thinking is happening is that as this backs up, the pipe fills with water, catch basins fill with water, the groundwater also has nowhere to go, and it's backing up the groundwater in this situation, which then comes through, forces through the surface of the asphalt, causes more ice in there. So during the winter, not right now because we've had some sunny 40-degree days, but when you see like a couple weeks ago when you have 25-degree days and we have a little bit of snow melt or rain, you'll see all icing in the curve of this road, and our hope is to eliminate that or at least minimize that condition. It's the main road in and out to those three businesses that I mentioned earlier, and the two businesses plus the community. So it gets a fair amount of traffic, and we just want to alleviate that icing situation. So with that, I think we have everything covered here. We have your application. We identified the area of this area to be restored, this area to be restored, and the volume of removal. The last thing I did want to mention is the erosion sedimentation controls. Obviously, we can't put them up on this grass area initially because that's where we have to be working. But after the machinery is out of there, the area can be raked and reseeded, add a little topsoil if needed, and then in a rainstorm, we don't want that to wash into the stream. So after that is done, then we have erosion sedimentation controls around that area. And we have a note on the plan that those stay in place until your wetlands officer, until Gary approves that it's stable enough that the E&S controls could be removed and then disposed of properly. So they're not going to stay there forever, but they're going to stay there long enough until a good stand of grass is in there and it's stable. think that's pretty much all I have. I tried to keep it short. Any questions at all?
I do have a question. So where do you think that the sediment is coming from?
As I mentioned before, I think, well, from upstream, there's always sediment transport in the stream. That's one. That's probably the low base. Next, there's obviously with these ongoing thawing and icing conditions, they put a lot of sand and salt on the road to mitigate that. The sand ends up in the catch basins, not only these two catch basins upstream too that make it into the stream. Some of it is road sand. Some of it is natural stream bed materials. Some of it is road sand. And then in those photos you see that when they did this, they put just a lot of riprap along the edges of the stream. You can clearly see it in the pictures. And on both edges of the stream, even though that the north edge is mostly bedrock, they still put kind of loose riprap over the bedrock. And then what it looks like to me is they had like a preformed scour hole or something made out of riprap at the end of this that has now kind of dislodged, and as water falls out of there in a larger rainfall event, it's kind of dislodged that riprap and just moved it downstream. So you can, in a lot of these pictures, you can see the pool where there's really not much riprap unless maybe on the 2-foot bottom, but all of that is just moved down here. So all we want to do is just remove that and just let the stream flow naturally all the way down through to open up this pipe.
So you don't foresee this problem happening in the future?
To a lesser extent, for sure, because there's still going to be road sand, there's still going to be streams transport. But if we remove that riprap, which is not really needed, it is needed along the earth edge, and that's pretty stable along that grass edge there. Along the back edge, it was just placed over bedrock. It has nothing to really hold it in place. So as you get water flowing through this falls away. So we don't anticipate any erosion on this side because it's bedrock. That loose riprap that was put there 10, 20, 30 years ago, whenever they constructed this or maintained it afterwards, now is in that area. So to Kristen's question, we don't anticipate it to this extent again because that riprap now will be gone. You can't pile up there. There might be a little bit of road sand, but that can just blow through in the next storm. Right now, there's essentially a dam preventing free flow.
This development's like from the 80s, right? This, like the Chapman Woods, or?
Yeah, I have the original plan here.
I was curious.
I did have a question. Once the material's removed from like the stream bed, is there any restoration that's required there?
It's, from what I could tell, it's mostly man-altered or man-made, and it's just an intermittent water course. There's really no regulated wetland soil. So it's just restoring that grade as shown on the profile, and it's just taking out that pile. So it's just, what the restoration is getting it back down to its proper original grade.
And will you need riprap on the roads? I guess that's the south side.
The south side, you could see that the riprap is in pretty good shape right now. So we're not proposing. Yeah, we're not proposing to remove that, of course. That's
just the stuff in the middle.
Just the stuff in the middle of the stream, yes. Yeah, the bank riprap will stay because that's doing its job and it's not causing additional earth erosion on that side. This was the original plan, and if I could read that with my old eyes, 1999 was the date of this plan. And it shows all the drainage throughout, and this is the area that we're talking about. Here's Flaming Road. There's the curve, here are the catch basins out, here's the box culvert, and there's that section of the stream. If you look closely, obviously it's a natural stream that flows with a straight run downhill toward the little footbridge. And we're just trying to bring it back to that.
So that goes under 161 there and then out into Patagonia Creek. Is that what goes down alongside the car wash?
Yes. Yeah, it goes under the state highway. I know it's being maybe changed a little bit with this new highway project, but it's a decent natural stream up in the upper reaches. There is a culvert underneath the upper road up here, and then it gets here and goes underneath that box culvert and then drops down. So it's intermittent as well, so it doesn't run all year long. So there's really no fish or chance of fish because they can't move upstream.
Is this what is, like, across the street at the new car wash? You
Yes.
know how they have that catch basin and there's a pipe that,
So
is that,
this outlet at the end of this plan discharges into 161, goes through the drainage system in the highway, and it used to outlet onto the Soapy Noble property.
Yeah.
Soapy Noble. They now we had it piped down further to a root wrap opening, and then it's going to
Okay.
overland flow into the ladder of Patagans.
okay.
This is stormwater and an intermittent stream combined. Am I
Correct.
correct?
Yep.
How much is stormwater?
That's,
I mean, you'd have to,
we have to do a pretty big technical
no, but
analysis to figure that out.
you know, over maybe a month's period, what percent might be stormwater and what might be a stream?
On the overall plan, I can't really give you a number on that, just because, again, that's a very technical question that would take a really finite analysis if someone could really compute that with any degree of accuracy. But what I can tell you is there are 94 homes up here, and they're all uphill, so they all drain for the driveways and the roadways. That there are stormwater basins up there, but every water runs downhill, so it all eventually makes it here. So there is, and then there's the Dairy Hotel is up in the back, and also the daycare.
So it all goes through this.
All of that. It's about a 100-acre watershed. In the back of your application, I included just a very brief delineation of the watershed. The last few pages, you'll see this yellow here, and the bright yellow is the USGS has a program called Stream Stacks, and you can select your location that delineates based on the topography. And this is about 100 acres. So it's not a tremendously large watershed. It's small enough where it will not run. If you check this in the summer months, yeah, there you go.
I don't know, Zach. Doesn't stormwater need to be separated from streams? Forgive me, I
So
don't
the
know.
olden day, like when this, even 1999, before the water quality manuals and everything started to come out right around, we were still writing the manuals at that point in time. But the idea used to be just to get rid of the water and get it into a stream as fast as you can.
Right, okay.
Since then, we've been trying to do a much better job on stormwater. We have sumps, we try to break up impervious areas, we have rain gardens, we have stormwater basins. There's just so many different controls. Even in catch basins, we have deep sumps now, we have outlet structures to prevent the Dunkin' Donut floatable cups going downstream, and anything else that floats on water like oils and things that could be cleaned and skimmed off of the top. So it's much better now than it used to be, but we have a lot of developments that were done before those times, and there's no authority to go in there and make them get up to 2024 time.
Unless they're making
We just
improvements,
have to-
right?
We just have to deal with what they have now. Unless they're making major infrastructural improvements, yes, or adding and so forth. And if they were rebuilding the road, if they were doubling the width of the road, then that's when we would implement like low impact development things and check their other stormwater basins. They have a fair amount of stormwater basins for 1999, I have to say. They've been doing a pretty good job at maintaining them. Some of them probably could have some sediment removed, but they do have a pretty good budget and a pretty good program to get in there and maintain. They recently brought us on board to fix these too, and they have some other things that they want us to look at as well.
Thank
Is this an association or is?
It is. Yeah.
Okay, so as far as, because obviously this is a dangerous situation that you don't want to alleviate for the future, could they do more regular street sweeping? Is that something the town does or the association does? Or like, can we flag
don't
the
own the
town to
road.
just, the town doesn't own the road?
So they use salt and sand. That's the sand. So we don't own it. We have nothing to do with that road.
Okay.
They could sweep more frequently. I can say that several years back, I did meet with that association and I did assist them in drafting a maintenance plan for their basins and all of this infrastructure because it had to do with inland wetlands, whether they're man-made or naturally occurring. So I think they came up with a pretty good plan. I've recommended to other associations to contact them
Mhm.
and look at their plan
Right.
as an example. So from that perspective, I think we can certainly say, hey, maybe we sweep more frequently.
So the salt on these roads ends up in the aquifer down below, am I correct?
There's no aquifer in this
Well-
area.
Eventually,
Far
the runoff-
downstream it may, yeah.
Yeah, I would think the surface waters here are going to make it to the river and then continue to flow downstream, and then it's going to take some time for the groundwater to move its way through the aquifer in
Mhm.
this particular area.
Right.
But eventually it would get there at some point, maybe a percentage.
We've worked with a lot of different associations like this over the years, and I have to say that plan that was implemented, they didn't just put it on a shelf to collect dust somewhere. They actually implement that plan. When I was there were people there vacuuming the catch basin, some side of the catch basin. So I think they do that twice a year. So spring and fall, they get up all the leaves and the sticks, and then all the accumulated sand, like in the springtime. And they take that out of their catch basin. So they're actually doing a pretty good job for drainage maintenance. A lot of subdivisions from the 70s, 80s, 90s were seeing a lot of complaints come in now that the detention basins and everything are just so overgrown and no one has the funds to get in there and do anything about it. So it's not a great situation, but I have to say this particular association does a really nice job of maintaining is within their means anyways, because they don't have millions of dollars to work with, but what they have to work with, they utilize. They have a good maintenance program.
In regards to subdivisions in that scenario, usually those detention basins become part of the public improvements, and if they're not, we'll ask for an easement that the town can go in and maintain if necessary, and then of course you leave the property and all that
Right.
stuff later. But at least if it's part of the public improvements in that road, we want to be able to get in there and do the maintenance work if necessary, if it creates a safety issue. But in this case, we don't own the road, so we don't have that particular interest here.
Okay.
So, in summary, if I may, it took 25 years to get to this point?
I don't know the last time they, I don't know if Gary in his tenure remembers if they ever had a wetland application similar to this, but
No.
I'm new to the association within the past 6 months to a year working for them, so I don't know the overall history. It looks like it's the original basalt modified riprap that's in there, so I have to assume that not a lot of it was taken out ever in the past. I think it took that long with the storms we've been having to create that scourle. They probably didn't intend for that outlet to be 2-3 feet off of the ground. The stream was probably even up higher before, and they probably built it up with loose soil and riprap over the bedrock, which quickly washes away.
Well, my point was going to be, it took 25 years to get here.
Mhm.
It'd probably take another 25 years to have to do
I'm
this
hoping
again.
even longer, because, like Kristen brought up the road sand. Road sand, even if it gets in there, a large storm could flush that out. This riprap, it would take a huge volume of water, probably more than that 2x4 can handle, to flush that riprap downstream, and then it's just going to go 20 feet downstream and then stay there. It's not going to keep going. And we don't want it to keep going because it would end up at Route 161. So as you can see on the profile, we're just matching grade here. We have a nice downhill profile at that end. And we're just matching into that so we get a positive slope back to that very pipe. So it just continues to flow freely downstream.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
One more, that coffer dam is only temporary, where it seemed like would that be a long-term help to reduce sedimentation going downstream?
So again, that's kind of like a temporary dam across there. We don't want any dams on the stream. We want that free flow. Plus, this is just like 3/4 inch to 1 inch crushed stone. So any relatively significant storm would
But
just wash
it's
that.
stream and stormwater, not just stream, right? Is it stream?
Stream that does carry some stormwater, yes. Yeah. But yeah, we just have that as temporary, and we have a detail for that, and then that would just be removed after on the way out. That's just for the if there was an unforecasted 1 inch rainfall during construction and some water got down there, we want that water to be filtered so that any sediment doesn't migrate down below. It probably won't really be needed. if some water is released from this pool here, as that's being graded, we have the work also in one of these notes to be started in the downstream, work towards upstream, so that this water in the pool, if there is water in the pool at the time, is not released while they're digging in a downstream direction. So we have the downstream and upstream. Try to think of all these little things. It's a 1 to 2 day job with a relatively small amount of material, but we just didn't want it to become any sort of problem.
Thank you.
So we received this today. We could do a site walk before the next meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
And, you probably want to make a
And-
determination whether or not you think this needs a public hearing or not, based on what you've heard tonight. And go from there.
So that's our step for today, is to determine if it requires a public hearing or not.
Correct.
Okay. Does anyone have any thoughts on that?
My thought would be no, but
Yeah, I would agree with you.
No what?
No public hearing.
No, I don't think so for this.
We look at it as maintenance
Mhm.
versus.
Yeah, but it's also, who's it really impacting? It's just you four guys, so the people who live there.
Yeah. and it's not
Schedule
public
those.
property.
It's not even
Sidewalk
a
and-
state road, you know.
Address it at the next meeting then.
Yep.
We'll have staff review,
Mm-hmm.
the plan, engineering. I'll probably go back and forth with Mr. Wren, and
Yeah.
we'll hopefully be able to maybe, ideally, because of the maintenance nature of this and the safety issue, we can address it sooner than later. So, I don't know, I'll try to do my best to get a memorandum completed
Okay.
for the meeting, and at least if you're in a position to take action, you can. If not,
I mean, the
then-
way our winter's going, it's not going to dry up anytime soon for work, but does anyone have a hard copy
Hard copy of who?
of the application? Do you have an extra hard copy of the application? I don't have the full thing, I just have just that. Thank you.
Can have the extra photos too if you want.
Yeah, thank you. I think we're all set with this one. I'm sorry, do we need to make a motion?
You just table discussion.
Just table discussion, we don't have to make any motions or anything.
You could make a motion to table discussion, but you don't.
No, I mean that it doesn't warrant a public hearing. We don't need to vote on that.
No.
Okay,
Great, thank you.
all right, thanks.
See you next month.
Next month is March. What month is it?
One step closer to spring.
All right, so next we have no pending applications. Under old business, we have the inland wetlands watercourse regulations, review of proposed draft revisions.
when are we supposed to talk about this other one? That was in the folder, the Gurley Road?
Yeah, we didn't add that to the agenda, so I was going to bring that up under my report as a receipt. The engineer is not here this evening. I was unable to make it, so I could speak to it, but I can't really, I just know it's a proposal for a single-family home. So if you want to,
So under your report, we'll talk about this?
Yeah.
Okay. The regulations, have you been able to update those?
I gave you all I think the new numbers, red line copies, there should be a copy. So
I
that,
didn't get a folder of stuff.
How did you not get a folder?
I don't know.
this one or
I
that?
had a folder with just a few select things in there.
Folder here, I don't
I'm
know.
trying
Okay,
to withhold.
I
No,
don't,
she's got one because
I
you
have-
had handed me one over there.
oh, maybe.
And
No,
now
but
there's
that's
one
not, the regulations aren't in here.
here. In the back of the blue.
They are in this folder.
Back of the blue folder.
Oh, yes, yeah, I don't have this. I'm good now, yes. Yeah, no, I didn't have that. Okay, I'm not losing my mind, I didn't have that. Okay.
So that iteration was the last, as far as I know, the last iteration that we had discussed, and I don't know if there were any other changes beyond those. I don't know that there were from the last meeting, but I figure with the new membership,
Yeah, I wanted to do one last.
everyone can get on the same page
Yep.
with the exact document and
Yep.
and have a quick run through it. If you have comments, suggestions, let me know and I can make some changes, additions. And we
Okay.
can discuss them and maybe solidify them at the next meeting.
Yep.
That gives everyone a chance to kind of get caught up, and
Perfect. So homework before the next meeting. We're all going to go through these. We'll discuss at the next meeting, and then after that we could have the public hearing, hopefully, right?
Is there,
if the agency is on board with that, yeah. Absolutely.
so some of the like corrections are blue, some are red, does it matter? They're all just the revisions that, like, is there a
difference
difference
between the blue and
the
the red?
different colors? Or, I mean, it's usually like a different person when you're in like Word,
Yeah, Sam
I think,
would
but
know this.
I didn't know if there was a
Sam did a good
significance.
job.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
They should all be changed. I know most of my changes were in red.
Are these online?
The blue should be. It's kind of like it's a tracked change. It was just there's a deletion and then there's an insertion.
Mm-hmm.
So it made that blue instead of red.
Yeah.
I don't think these are online.
They're not online?
Are they? They're not online, right?
I can put them online, but no, I did not put them online.
Okay.
I think that there might be iterations to look at on the materials. I just had to find the meeting
I was
for
just
you.
trying to make it easy because I don't have a copy. Oh, thanks.
Yeah. I have. Do you need the? I want to make sure you pack it. I just have one more extra packet.
I have 2 copies if you need one.
Oh, that might be why.
Well, I had a packet, I just didn't have it in.
Maybe it's in.
Crazy.
All right, and then I'll let Phyllis know too. Maybe she could pick up a packet before the next meeting to take a look as well.
Yeah, I can. If you can stop by, that'd be great.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, so everybody clear on the plan forward with that? Yes. Okay. All right, so next we have the Inland Wetlands Agency Permit 21 to 26, 29 Rocco Drive, East Lyme, Connecticut, request for an erosion and sedimentation control bond reduction.
Yes. So last meeting in December, they had requested a release of the bond. We had some concerns about the work having not been completely completed. They still have to build the house. You know, that's at the top of the hill. And we had recommended they request a partial release. So the letter before you is requesting a release of $3,000, bringing the bond amount to $3,000 for stabilization. And that's based on Mr. Fanner's estimate of the work that's been completed. I would concur that it should be sufficient to stabilize anything that we need to. The driveway shoulders are all stable. The culverts in, that work has been completed and stabilized. I think at the last meeting I did share some pictures of that with you, and I had recommended that they remove the silt fence because that's just going to be plastic that sticks around. So if the commission is on board with this, then we'd be looking for a motion to release approximately $3,000
Of the 6.
of the 6. Yep.
I move that we release the $3,000 of the $6,000 set aside on the Rocco Road property.
I second that motion.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Abstain? Anyone abstain? Okay, we've got one. Okay, thank you. Moving on, chairman's report. I don't have anything to report on right now. Next would be the Inland Wetlands Agent report.
I got a couple of things here. I got some correspondence from Kristen Clark regarding her permit 2023-3 off of Heritage Road. There was, I don't know if you recall, on the Hathaway piece, there was a 6-acre lot that was split off and retained by English Harbor, I think, Management or LLC or whatever they call themselves. Anyhow, this was just correspondence that they were going to do the clearing that they needed for their test pits. So they had to clear, they have a 50-foot flagpole lot, if you will, so they cleared roughly a 30-foot wide swath down to their lot. The upland review area doesn't actually come into play until we actually get to where the property opens up, and they're actually going to do the soils testing for septic. So just so you know, I had issued the administrative permit for this, but they're just telling us that they're going to do that
Oh,
work.
okay. And the work is
Yeah,
outside of our
yeah.
review area? Okay.
Correct. But
Okay.
just
Yep.
work is going to go underway.
Okay.
The second is we received another application from 50 Gurley Road. I'm not all that familiar with it because it just came in this weekend. I saw it this morning. So the clock would start ticking
So-
tonight on this as a receipt. So you'd have 65 days to schedule a public hearing.
I'm sorry, but there's no one here to speak to this. We get this today, and the clock starts ticking.
Correct. But it's actually not as bad as
Okay.
I have the plans here. It's a single family home,
What was the address, Gary?
50 Gurley Road. So what they're looking at the end of Gurley Road is they're looking to come off with a driveway. They've got a stream crossing here, up to a house that's kind of nestled back in this lot.
Wait, I'm sorry. Where is this?
Gurley Road.
Where is Gurley Road? I see 95.
So the
It's
top
right,
of
it's right at the head of the Niantic River.
Oh,
like oil
oh,
mill or
oh,
something.
okay.
It's like
Got
a
it.
map
Okay.
that way.
The little chunk of East Lyme property over there.
The Frank Rivers.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
That's where we did that site walk with all the erosion, right?
Oh, yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Just help. So here's Gurley Road's up here. Second lot there. So here's Boston Post Road. I can put the
Where the new
so here's
gas
the
station
gas
is.
station's here.
Oh, okay.
So they have to access from off of Gurley Road is where their road frontage is. They don't have actually access from here or the cemetery.
Okay.
So in order to get there, you've got to come down Boston Post, down Oil Mill, into Waterford, back over the town line.
Can you get that?
What size lot is that? It's-
1.79 acres.
And it's an R10 district.
Yeah, it's residential.
Gary, what's the timing of when a decision has to be rendered, like how many days
I believe we have 65 days to render a decision, although I heard Mr. Marcus say 35. So I would double check on that, but I believe we have 65 days. If no public hearing is held, you have 65 days to hold a public hearing. I think you're gonna hold it. Again, most of this work is in the upland. However, you have a couple of stream crossings that
Gary,
will
can you,
potentially impact the wetlands.
can I just ask a question? I'm sorry. I'm having trouble orienting myself, and here, like, there's, on this map, there's like an existing house down here. Yeah, so where is that existing house on the other map that you were,
Yeah, I think this goes like this.
is that,
Right?
Yeah, turn around.
It's upside down.
so that existing house,
There's this little lot right here.
Yeah, there's a cabin, a summer cabin on that lot.
so that's the existing house?
I believe so.
Yeah,
Okay.
Well, so I guess for this one, since
Yes.
he can't really, there's no one here to speak to it, we could include this on our site walk before the next meeting.
Yes.
And then hopefully you'd be here to present some information that we would then have time to consider.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, obviously have staff take a look at this as well, and get the staff reviews.
Do you have an actual application or just the maps?
No, I do have an application.
But it's not.
No, the new one you just got. It's okay.
That was the other side.
We're here.
Oh, it must be in this one, in this one. Ouch.
I brought it up here if you need, I don't know. Doug
Got it.
Hoagland is the landowner, Jim Bernardo, land surveyor, is the applicant. Roughly 21,000 square feet or half an acre of upland areas to be disturbed. Notice he says area of wetlands or water course is 0, so I have some questions regarding the crossing that he shows here, and maybe that's existing, and he doesn't have to improve it, which would be advantageous, certainly, if we had to make improvements there. That's a lot better than having to actually do work directly in the water course. I just don't see any notes pointing out that that's an existing crossing. I suspect it is.
Gary, there's wetlands on this property?
Yes, right, you can see these little dots here are wetland flags. You can follow my cursor along there. That's
Oh, I
the
see,
wetland.
yeah.
Yep. I'm not sure, I didn't see in the legend, this dark black line, I'm guessing those are watershed boundaries, but I didn't see it in the legend, so I'll do it. And I didn't see a note calling out what that is exactly, so I have a few questions regarding the plan that I'll draft up and forward to Mr. Bernardo.
So your assumption is that they're gonna knock down what's there and build a new house? Is
No,
that-
There's no house.
there's no house on this lot.
Oh, I thought we were looking
Is
at
it-
another house. Oh, that's the neighbor's house.
Yeah, the
Oh,
house,
okay.
this house is, this structure here, that's, in the aerial, that's this little lot here. This is a vacant lot here, the subject parcel.
Oh, so it's behind it.
Correct.
Okay. And as far as you know, it's one home?
Just the one
So
home.
it says, yeah, 3-bedroom house, unfinished basement and a garage.
Okay.
I think this GIS is a little misleading because it's only an acre. Plus, it's a smaller than
Yeah.
this makes it
Yeah.
look like.
It looks huge, like 5-acre
I'm
lot.
not sure what's going on there, but this certainly looks a lot bigger than the plan.
Well, so technically this is not on our agenda, so did we receive it today? I'm just
I-
concerned about the 35 days if that's the case.
Correct.
So if it's not on our agenda, is it technically, did we technically receive it?
I believe it's technically received because the date it was dropped off in my office was February 2nd.
Okay.
It came in, so
Well, I would
technically-
imagine if we needed, they would grant an extension considering that they're not able to come
They had
tonight, so we'll worry about that when the time comes.
extenuating circumstances that
Yeah.
they could not be here tonight.
Okay, all right. All right, so hopefully we have nice weather for the sidewalk. We're gonna be out there for a little bit between these two places.
So moving on in my report, I guess cease and desist order of Park Lane. I went out there the other day, took some pictures, and the work that was done, there's still water flowing over the shoulder onto the road, so I think there's definitely going to be a potential icing issue there. So talked with the town engineer. His recommendation is the guy needs to hire his own engineer, design something to fix. So I think that's what we're looking at, and that eventually he's going to have to come in, I think, with an application to manage the drainage so it doesn't spill out onto the road. 8 Brookfield Drive, don't have much to report there. I did speak to Norm Tebow today. I asked him what the status was. He says they got the survey done, the wetlands delineated. We did hear from, I think it was Thoreau, was it Thoreau or Superly? I can't remember who delineated them on this. But anyway, that's put together. They have the test pits, but they have not determined a house footprint or design. Norm indicated that he thought maybe the best they're going to do is a 2 to 3 bedroom home, 15 to 1,800 square feet. He did say they found soils that were suitable, both on the portion of land closest to the road and then further toward the rear of the parcel. he says most likely they'll be doing a system that would pump up to this area, to the pump in the rear of the parcel. Because crossing the stream where the pipe would be, with the alternative is, well, if you have another suitable location, right, there's a prudent, feasible alternative there. So they'll have to explore probably both, but I think they're, based on what he was telling me, that they probably have to pump it up. So we would be waiting for a plan there. I did indicate to him, we had discussion at the last meeting that revolved around revegetating the site, potentially if there was nothing to be happening, right? Maybe a few trees could be planted. So he said, okay, I'll talk with my client about that. So depending on what they do.
So we had a cease and desist. We still do.
Still do.
And then they put test pits in?
No, they cleared. They've done test pits. They didn't put them in. They dug them.
They cleared for test pits.
Well, they were clearing the lot, I think, to build the lot. But the little clearing that they did, I don't know how much clearing. Mr. McCormick's here. I'm sure he can talk to it. But they cleared to put test pits in. They issued a permit so they could do those test pits. They did the test pits.
Oh, so you knew that they were going to do the test pits?
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
I know those were observed by the Ledgely Health District. And Joe kind of indicated to me the same, that the soils were relatively suitable. So it's a matter of design and figuring out what fits there. So that's where we're at.
They have a soil scientist that's working the project?
Yes, they actually spoke at the last meeting. They came here before us. And
December 5th.
yes.
Apologize, I missed that meeting.
No worries. But they're working on a plan to build out the lot in response to that order.
Okay. So currently no work is going on right now?
Currently no work is happening out there now. 9 Rocco Drive. Was some clearing down to the pond. The pond is on, I think it was the 135 acre piece that sold to Pass and Construction off of, is it Latimer? No, Quellcrest.
Are there plans like put out for this? Like, I live in that area and I've heard all these rumors and that, like, is it going to connect to like Rocco or?
So if anything that's done out here, if they do a subdivision, they're going to need a second means of egress. And you got access at Rocco, you have access at Green Tree, well, maybe.
Or was like Winston, maybe?
Winston, and then over here on, where was that, Latimer? Right there, Mayfield Terrace, you have access.
She runs her knee down to Smith.
So there's a couple different points of access for that larger piece, although that's not subject to this action.
Next to.
This is the lot, 9 Rock.
Goes that road right through there.
Here's 9. So you can see here's 9. 9 has this interesting jog in it, and the pond is completely on the other parcel. Well, this gentleman cleared all the way down to the pond. You can see it's a new home. I've since been out there. The site has since been revegetated. They just lawned up to the pond. So I've indicated to him not to touch the bank. The time I went out there, I believe the lawned area looked like more like a meadow grass. So it was a higher. It wasn't like he was mowing it. So if he can leave it alone, he won't be trespassing. And the violation will correct itself. I did notify Mr. Pizzalia of the clearing, that he inherited the violation. He just rolled his eyes and said, well, let me know what I got to do.
Yeah, right.
So I said, secure your property, and you'd probably be okay there. So I'm working on resolving that issue, but I sent him a notice just to keep Mr. Van Wagner aware that he can't just clear haphazardly anywhere he wants down to the water. The association is pretty good about keeping an eye on their own residents, and that's how I heard about it. So
And that's not his property though, right? That's
this one,
no, that was cleared.
the property that was cleared was over here, 80 Quellcrest. This guy built the house, and as he built the house, he cleared all the way down to the pond.
But he doesn't
Cleared on
own
private
that.
Yeah, he doesn't own it. He cleared it.
He cleared it even though he doesn't own it.
Correct.
What's that water doing?
So if you back out of here, you can see, like, you can see he cleared all the way down into here.
Oh,
Hmm.
So who owns
And
that?
it wasn't his property.
That, now it's Paz in Construction. It was the previous owner, which Viali LLC, but they since purchased it.
Paz owns it now.
And then 90. I'm sorry. Are you still? We're still good?
Sorry, I was just
Yeah,
like
no,
noticing
it's-
how far back the
Interesting
the
location of
house
that.
is. Like, I mean,
Close to the
Like the
property
water.
line.
The
Yeah.
driveway must be long.
Well, he benefited from a driveway that was already installed.
Oh,
He didn't have to improve it at all. So this guy here, who I think was the first in on there, he's all the way back, and so he got the driveway.
oh, okay. Oh, wow.
I mean, but
that's
yeah.
how you do it.
Nice.
That's how you do it.
Yeah. Okay.
And then 9092 Laurelwood, and I'm gonna apologize because I got that confused with Park Lane. Park Lane is over by the train tracks. No response there on Park Lane.
Oh, that's the one they live in New York or something, right?
Correct. So
Okay.
I'm gonna talk with Mr. Mazzamarco and see if we can't get their attention
Okay.
without having to ask for an injunction, but maybe a letter from him. Not sure. Still working at it, but the houses, I talked to Ed Scarpati, and he struggles with them as well as they construct on this house. There's a language barrier, I think, that we're running in front of, and I don't know if we can, how we're gonna get beyond that. I just, maybe a language barrier is a bad term because I don't know if that's the barrier exactly. So, I think they
Yeah.
use it.
Today's technology, we can work
I
with
think
that.
it makes for a good excuse.
Did they ever get a correct address for him?
For 14 Park Lane, or
Isn't that the one where the address that was listed
Yeah.
was not, like, when I researched it, it didn't match up, like, there was no address by,
Or his, what?
yeah,
if
there's
his-
no 22 Park
Park
Place
Place,
in New
New
Britain.
oh, okay, I'm not aware
I
of that.
think that's the one that I told you about when I looked at it, when I looked it up.
And that address,
So I know you were doing mailings, but you weren't getting any response.
yeah. And you're saying this address doesn't exist?
Yeah, I think that was the one that had the bad address.
So maybe it's a mailing barrier.
Could be. Explain a lot.
Not enough money.
Yeah.
Buy houses.
All right,
Yeah,
I will
right.
check with the assessor,
No oblate.
collector, where we send the tax bills.
Yeah,
Figure
see
that
if they
out.
have a good address for that one.
And maybe the post office, so we'll see. Okay, so that's where that's Park Lane, and then 9092, as I said, I did take pictures of that, water's still coming out onto the road. He needs to hire an engineer to move forward there.
Okay.
Little Indian Pond, we left it on the agenda for discussion as things progress. I haven't heard anything. I don't know if the group down there that was interested made application for some grants. I think they were pursuing that, so
I know they
oh,
cut down all their phragmites.
that they did.
And I bet they got some salt water in that pond
Oh, yeah.
recently.
Not to mention rocks and sand.
Yeah.
Everything,
Other
yeah.
things.
Yeah.
That's the bottom of the watershed.
So I'd be curious what kind of, I'd like to keep that on there to see what happens over the spring months as summer residents come back and see if there's any activity down there.
Not a problem. All right, we'll leave it on the agenda.
So that's the same site that, crushed McCook's parking lot. And yet the pipe from the pond to the ocean is still running. It's a miracle, but it's still flowing out of the pond into the ocean. They've got plastic swans anchored in the bottom to keep the birds away, and it's interesting to watch.
Did they have a fountain out there? They put a fountain out
They
there?
did, but it's not running now. Because all the, we had enough rain that all the stuff that was growing went away.
I was gonna say, I just put under vision appraisal, under that, property at 14 Park Lane. And it says the address is 22 Park Place, New Britain, Connecticut. Is that what you have?
That's what's here.
But
Yeah, that address
on the
doesn't
GIS.
That's
exist.
under vision appraisal.
And that's what our assessor would have.
Yeah, that's what I was
But
thinking.
if that's not a correct address, then even the tax bill's not gonna get there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe that will light a fire.
Okay.
Because I just looked it up. If you put in 22 Park Place, it tells you nothing because it's 22 and then it is 1A, 1F, 1R. There's another piece to that address that we don't have. 22 Park Place is just a general address.
Oh,
So
so
you
it's like an
need
apartment complex. and
Condos or
use a-
something, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so you need another piece of that address.
Okay.
Great job, Diane, finding that out.
Interesting. I
Tom
would have been
wasn't twiddling
stumped
her
at
thumbs.
22. All right. So that, yeah, hopefully that'll help out. We can maybe find a unit number and track this guy down. And that is all I have.
All right. On that note,
Make a motion.
got a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Have a great night. We'll see you guys at the site walk.